a Build Hatch developed production.
Hello, I'm Aaron Kyle and welcome to another episode of Build Hatch. On this week's episode of Build Hatch, I had a very entertaining sit-down chat with our very first father and son duo, Wayne and Jackson from ProStart Constructions. As you'll hear, we covered a lot of ground, and I particularly wanted to hear from a builder who has been around a bit and seen the many changes over time that have occurred in our building and construction industry. I had a lot of fun talking to both Wayne and Jackson, and these true blue hard workers have worked extremely hard to lead not only in schools and education projects, but are also doing some amazing things in the residential space also. This episode was a lot of fun. Now let's get into it. Wayne and Jackson from ProStart Constructions, welcome to Build Hatch.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thanks for having us. We're pleased to be here. It's great.
No, look, it is great, and I'm really looking forward to this one because you guys are our first father and son duo, so really looking forward to getting this story out there. So I guess we'll probably start with you, Wayne, being the old man of the business. So take us back to the very beginning. Did you grow up here in Melbourne?
Yep. Grew up in Melbourne, raised mainly in Essendon. Did do a little spell in Bacchus Marsh when Mum and Dad moved from our Essendon home. But been around the Essendon area all of my life. Yeah.
Now, everyone always wants to know, with particularly with a builder who's been around a while, what were the early days like back then? You know, how did you make the transition from school into the building industry? What was that like?
You know, I had a strong civil background. I had a landscaping business way back, and that slowly progressed into construction and all types of civil, and then into carpentry. I started life as an apprentice carpenter with my oldest brother, and that lasted, I think, for about 6 months. And then Dad said on a Sunday, by the way, you are going to work at the Steel Company of Australia tomorrow morning because your brother's useless. He won't get out of bed. And next thing I knew, I was a moulder in a steel factory, and probably fantastic because I've just been around a bit, learned a lot of things, and life just moved on from there. I've basically always been a worker, so getting a bit older now, though.
Now, you mentioned two important comments there before, and one of them was the civil industry. Now, I worked in civil once upon a time,
Yep.
and the guys in civil, and for people that aren't sort of explicitly involved in civil and they're more, say, construction, resi or commercial, one of the things I noticed about the civil guys, they have a certain appreciation for sequence and trades following trades and the preparation work. Don't you think like that's a standout of the civil industry?
Absolutely. Probably also because it's so crucial, and it's one of the first on, whether it's commercial, residential, schooling sector, it doesn't matter. It's one of the early stage applications on site. It's critical for getting up and out of the ground. It's really important to have it organised and documented correctly because you really only get one go at it unless you want to really spend a lot of money making adjustments and repairs when you stuff it up. So it's a really important part. I've found over the years a lot of builders tend to stay away from that. They'll use subcontractors without actually then getting further involved in it. Well, I've always liked to be on top of it and be a little bit more in control of it because I think it's really important. And again, I suppose because I've got a strong background in it, levels and cuts and shapes and all that sort of stuff come fairly natural to me. So it's, in answer to your question, it's super important that it's got to be organised correctly and get it right the first time, and you're going to save a ton of money, which long-term keeps your costs down, better for the client, everyone's happy. It's a win for everyone.
Yeah, like you said, maybe it's the alternative if you don't do it right and stuff it up. It's not just pulling down a bit of wall or particular bit of frame or something like that, or putting a hole in and then redevelop. Like it's a major operation to rectify things.
It can be. That's right. It can be really, really expensive because coming out of the ground, especially in today's environment with costs just exploding, it can be really expensive. Really, really expensive. I'd be the first one to be honest and say, do we over-engineer from time to time? I'd have to say yes. You've just got to get it right. We've seen too many times when you go back and look at defects, and touch wood, we've never had ever any major defect, a loose door handle, so on and so forth, but a serious defect I think we've had one over the time, and that was structural related, but that was in an area where we'd done everything right. It was just such a terrible site. It was a problem, but all stems from below ground.
What about you, Jackson? What were you always sort of looking at entering the construction industry and working for your dad?
Early on, getting towards the end of my schooling career, I was never great at school. I loved going to school to catch up with my mates. That was about it, and kick the footy. But in terms of getting closer to my end of school, I always wanted to get into the fitness industry, and maybe go down the path of a personal trainer or something like that. Early days, mum and dad split up, and I ended up moving from living with mum over to the western suburbs, northwest, to live with the old man, and which was closer to school. And I think, after a few years of that, that was when ProStart was really sort of, it was a smaller company, but thriving. And I saw that day to day. And I think I would say that I didn't have any chance going any other way than to come on board and do it. But yeah, I'm very, very grateful, and I'm rapt that it sort of went that way.
He's a builder and he follows Essendon, and that's it.
That's all that matters.
we had another partner. Steve Hart was Steve and I were original. Just quickly, we did a trip around Australia in '88. I was obviously well into my working life by that stage, but we did a trip for a while. When we came back, a guy that we know within my first wife's side of the family wanted a chop out with some bluestone work in the Supreme Court. So they needed a hand for a couple of weeks, and I think roughly about 18 or 19 years later, something like that, I went off and ProStart became ProStart. But that little venture turned into having a really tight-knit crew of workers that just gelled for a company that I worked with that are still in business. The two sons run that business now and have done for many years. And collectively together, we were pretty good at what we do. Steve and I were original business partners. Steve's moved on to Queensland with his family, and he's very happy up there. But Steve nursed Jackson as a baby, and Steve was under my tuition, along with other guys in this original company way back when that I mentioned. And Stevie said to me when he was just still a raw, young knucklehead, he said, "No matter what, one day you and I will work together." And yeah. No, well, that's what happened. That's how ProStart began, and then Jackson's sort of been tagging along in the background ever since as a young bloke. But time gets away now. He's 32 years old, so I think he's enjoying it.
Yeah, well, it's been from day dot. I did a pre-apprenticeship, and you're on the tools one day a week while you're doing your pre-apprenticeship. But in terms of going to site, being around your mates, listening to whatever music you like, that as well as what we do day to day, every day is different. Like now it's a little bit different. I'm not so much on the tools every day with the boys, but that aspect of it, to be around your mates, and yeah, it's just, I couldn't really imagine myself doing anything else.
All right, so ProStart are well known, particularly around Melbourne, for the educational and the school projects that you guys do. So tell us a little bit about that. It's completely different, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I've always called myself a school builder because the company that I did work with previous, that we were school builders. I've got a pretty strong connection with the schooling sector, especially the public schooling sector. We do private schools, Catholic schools, we'll do whatever. But, when I say I've got a strong connection, I've still got to turn a dollar. We've got to make a buck. So it is a business, but we do get quite attached to our schools. We've got a school at the moment that we started, I think, 3 years ago. We did a small extension for them for, around 300 or 400. I think we've had people there on and off. That's a school that we've built a relationship with and we take a lot of pride in that. There's a lot of trust, and I think we're known in that area as pretty serious school builders. We do get attached to our schools, just like if we build a home for you and it was important to you. Well, it's something that we've always said to our clients. whether we like it or not, a part of us is always left behind because we built it. We built it, and that's it. We've got a connection to it, and that's what it's like with our schools. And all of the people that work with us know that. We're full on about having strong respect for our schooling sector. Because once we move in, if we move into a project that's going to say minimum of 6 months, we put our fences up, we do all of that stuff. Within a couple of weeks, we become oblivious to the actual school. So they're used to us. So we see the school in their true form. Most schools are run really, really well, and they've got strong commitments and values. So we go along with that, and you become part of it, and it's great. Could we make more money if we're a bit colder and not quite as attached? Absolutely. But we also sleep better and we enjoy it more.
One of the standouts that comes about with working in that school environment, like you just mentioned, is trust. So there's also those compliance hoops to jump through. So if you uphold those requirements and instill those into your business in that environment, you're just bound to be valued for that work moving forward.
Oh, absolutely. We get a lot of enjoyment out of schools ringing us personally. Obviously, bigger projects, they're all run through, most of them are run through the VSB, Victorian Schooling Building Authority. And, that's through portals and separate architects and all that sort of stuff. But, some of the smaller projects, when schools ring us, we'll get a phone call to say, hey, a door closer's not working, can you help us? And we will. Could get jammed, that door get jammed on a kid's fingers, or it might be going into an accessible toilet. That's important. They can't wait 2 weeks. It's got to be done. So you get a lot more than that out of little things like that. It's important, and our guys know that. As we move into a world where more boxes need to be ticked, as I said earlier, there's a lot more work behind the scenes from the builders, which means that costs do escalate because you've got full-time people in your office doing a lot of work that never had to be done going back some 10, 15, 20 years ago. But that's the world we live in, and that's not just the construction industry. That's across world business these days.
So for people listening to this and thinking, well, what are some of those extra compliance requirements that you have to do? Like, take us through a bit of a journey. Like, what are some of those things that you have to do that others don't have to?
Well, a general tender, in a schooling tender, let's just pick a job. Let's say it's give or take, say $500,000. That would consist of generally a 3 to 4 week tender period. You're required these days a lot of projects, you're required to produce working cash flow projections, working day by day, week by week, and these have to be generated for a project that most of the time you're not going to win. You don't win the percentage of the projects we win, maybe 1 in 5. Really big builders might be 1 in 20. Really small builders, they might win every second one. So we're about 1 in 5, 1 in 6, 1 in 7, something like that. But on an average, we would need to produce for a job that size anything over 100, generally about 70 pages worth of documentation, and it's got to be specific to that project. Even though we may be known within their offices, it's still got to, if you're overseeing that project, you want to see it personally. You want to see it there on your computer. That's just programming that they use, which works well, and they do a good job, and they're great to work with. But we spend a lot of time on industrial relations, social procurement, all of those type of things. They want to know all about us in relations to who's running the projects, who exactly is each individual involved within the project, how long the project's going to take, subcontractors that may or may not be used, and the list goes on and on in that regard. OH&S, or work health and safety, plays a major role. We spend a lot of money on OH&S and WHS, componentry, quality control, programming and programs, safe work method statements, emergency response procedures, all of that sort of stuff. We've got to have it all documented, and it's all got to be ready to go at tender time. We've got to produce all of that.
And these are specific to, you could be building a physical education complex, or you could be building a swim center, or you could be building a drama hall. Like, they're all separate requirements for separate projects.
Absolutely. Some of it is fairly generic, but it's still got to be documented for each project. So, some might, external works. Let's say we're doing an extension, but it involves civil works. Let's say, we tendered just recently about a 2,500 square metre synthetic turf area at a school, and that involves a lot of OH&S in regards to safeguarding the students, especially at primary school, in a huge open area that we haven't fenced off, of course, but there's still a lot of stuff that we have to tick to bring materials, to bring equipment in. You've got all of that has to be costed and documented so they can see, okay, this company has got that section of work covered. You'll get a tick. If you don't give them the required information, it's not just based on price. It's our tenders aren't just based on price. They're also based on our ability to control the project and document the project correctly.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Now, Wayne, you mentioned before about price and 3 or 4 week tender process. What would be your calculated estimate for what that would cost if you're getting 1 in 5, or let's just say your strike rate's about 30% on winning the jobs that you quote for? What do you reckon it costs if you threw a dollar value at whether you win or lose for actually tendering that job? What do you reckon that costs your business?
If it's a project between 100 and $500,000 and it is construction works, they're fairly cheap for our company to cost because we're very experienced and knowledgeable in that area. In essence, we can basically cost that job without having to go out outsourcing prices too much. So that would range anywhere between $1,000 and $1,500 just to produce that tender. Anything over, you're looking at about anywhere between $2,000 and $3,500 to produce that tender to the level that it's acceptable. And if you're winning, as I say, 1 out of 5 or 6, you do the maths on that. There's $15,000 at least. Then you multiply that through the year. Basically, this is the way I do it in a rough old builder's way. When you sit there, we've got all of our procedures and numbers and accountants and all of that stuff that give us numbers. But most builders around my age, and I'm sure any of them that are listening to this would agree, we still sit here and go, okay, that's going to take 3 men 2 days to do that. That's basically, and even modern builders will still do that. My guys, Jackson, if I say to Jackson, give me a number on that, he'll go, 2 men 3 days. Or Aaron's not really, he's a bit slow with that, so he's going to take a day and a half, or Aaron's super good at that, is half a day will cover it. You know what I mean? We still operate like that a little bit. Then that's documented with pen and paper. Then it goes into our systems and it becomes a lot more professional from there. But basically, we allow a wage per year just on lost tenders.
Yep.
So there's, in excess of $100,000 that
it's just the cost of doing business. That's what it costs you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just to have somebody doing the quotes, Generally speaking, that's me. Jackson's doing a lot more of the numbers now on some of the smaller projects, but he's doing pretty well with that and getting more and more involved with that as we move forward. So, and he needs to be, because the market changes so fast. You have to be on top of all of this stuff. Unfortunately, being a builder or any business owner, there's no such thing as, but I'm just going to, I'll stop now. You stop when your business allows you to stop. The one thing I don't sort of listen to, I don't tolerate, to be honest, is when people tell me, no, you just need not to let the business control. It is what it is. If you decide to go into business and you've got to produce, you don't just stop because you feel like it. You stop when you can, and you learn to live within the confines and the realm of your business. Anyone who tries to tell you that, I just stop when I need to, they're either ready to retire or their business isn't that strong. Simple as that.
Yeah, or they're telling stories.
Or they're telling stories, or they're filthy rich. I haven't got the filthy rich bit yet. We're travelling okay, don't get me wrong, but maybe he needs to make more money for it. I've got a boat here, but I've got a nice boat. The boat's about 50 metres away from where we're sitting right now, but floating in the water. But it's full of spider webs. It's embarrassing. People walk past the marina and go, look at that bloke. He doesn't even know how to start his boat.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, look. I'm passionate about the same thing, and I just, I love when you see things about people in business who somehow running it from over in I don't know where on an island or like particularly in the construction industry. You can't run a business like that, and most people are passionate where they want to be involved in their business at that level, at that elite level.
Absolutely. Just in quickly, because I know you're probably asking other questions, but I've got a really good mate of mine. We've got a place on the other side over in Mornington. It's just a little shack, and I've got a few mates over there. I've got one mate in particular, and he's got a very, very successful business. He certainly just never needs to work, and it operates at an extremely high level. He's just a normal, everyday working man who, if you took away his ability just to go to work, maybe he has a couple of extra lunches a week these days, but if you took away his ability just to go to work, go into the office or kick the tyres on some of his machinery, he'd be lost because that's just what it is. Very few people I know actually go, well, I've made enough money. Now I'm just going to become like this fat cat who I just have a yacht and a Maserati and I don't actually, you're always going to be involved in some way, aren't you?
Most successful people I know, and similar boat there, it's part of their life, and we're not saying
Hmm.
great, let's all be workaholics and flog ourselves, but I'm saying it's if you make it part of your lifestyle and it's a passion. I won't say it, you never work a day in your life because that's not true, but it becomes part of your life and your family's life, and you all just are on this same lane heading in the right direction, and it becomes fun and it's a journey.
Oh, absolutely. Like right now, as we speak today, Aaron, to be honest, we're at a real stressful level within the company. We've got a lot of pressure on us with outside forces in regards to, obviously COVID, that everyone's got those issues, but costs blowing out and all of that stuff. We've got a lot of pressures on us. And sometimes, I can look at my wife and she can see the strain, but if your families are accepting and understand that sometimes it's not going to be that flash. Sometimes it's going to be stressful. Um, you sort of get through it pretty easy. And before I know it, in the blink of an eye, oh, okay, that 3 week stressful period is done. Now we're back to normal. And before you know it, you are able to sneak out on the boat again and or have a game of golf. And our life, we've got a great life. My family and everyone associated with us have got a really great life. We're blessed because we choose to work hard and be progressive in our business, and we try to produce what our clients want. Which means if we do build something nice for you, hopefully your mate you're going to say while you're having a beer with him or whatever or a cup of tea, you're going to say, hey, listen, ring the boys up and have a talk to them. But all of our domestic stuff comes from people who want to deal with us. We don't do a lot of quoting. We'll generally negotiate and say, you take us on and you'll get our attention. But we do quote some domestic stuff, but basically we're sought after to build their stuff first, and then we build a relationship. Then we start to talk about how much it may cost. So
Yeah, look, definitely, that's where you want to be ultimately. All right, what about you, Jackson? What are some of the things you're working on within ProStart Constructions at the moment?
The way that we're set up at the moment is I can benefit from both sides. I mean, the old man's obviously been in the industry for many years. So as a company, he runs the office side of things. And as he mentioned before, I'm slowly coming into that and seeing that side of it. But it also it's given me a really good chance to sort of hone the skills out on site and have our guys and really nurture some younger guys coming through and work with other guys to get our on-site systems right and really get that side of the business working to the way we want it. The guys who work with us, they, as the old man said, they really do know that side of the business is important to us, and all the respect and all that sort of stuff that we have in our schools, it really does come into our residential space as well when we are doing the domestic side of things. And that side of our business within the residential and domestic space. Generally, when we build for a client, we always end up building a friendship with that client, and I think it is because myself and the old man, we know how we want to perceive the business, but the guys who we have working with us, they really do have that culture just from day one. they'll always be involved with the client and have a good understanding and a good relationship with them through the builds. That's my side of ProStart, I guess, is running the sites. Yeah, just eventually just moving more and more into the office side of things, and like me and the old man, we're obviously father and son. I would say we're best mates, but sometimes we butt heads every now and then. Being such a big age gap, we have a lot of different ideas that we want to throw into the business. I guess the old man's been doing it a certain way for many years, and now I'm coming in with all the modern stuff, as he would say.
I do it the right way.
But I think there's just seeing it over the last few years, especially with COVID, like there's been so many very, very quick changes that have been thrown in as to how you can possibly run your business. There's a lot of different stuff out there that I've always come to the old man with different ideas and stuff like that, as to how we can change things. But I think at the end of the day, the old man's right in saying, how we quote a job with me coming and saying, well, we talk about it and physically saying, right, well, that's going to take one man this amount of hours, or instead of using programs to calculate all our takeoffs and stuff like that, like I still prefer to spend a couple extra hours in getting the scale ruler out and doing it that way. I just find that by the time you're halfway through the job, it's much more into your head. And I've got that from the old man. It's I don't think that there's at the moment for us. Yeah, I just see that as a better way of doing it, and it creates a better outcome once we move into the process of build.
Yeah, look, I don't know anyone who does 100% estimating, like their role as an estimator. I don't know anyone who does 100% using software. Because I always thought it was maybe like, when you think you're used to a certain way, and then you've got the new generation with your kids coming through and they're just 100% digital. But I still find there's a very relevant application for using a ruler to scale things or measure. And I think it's the linguistic side of things with the actual building the job in your head. I just find,
absolutely.
Yeah, it gives you that extra perspective.
Gives you that time. That's right, and it gives you that time. While you're using that ruler or just jotting down, 10 men for 2 weeks. Okay, that's demo for that's going to be 38,000. Then you go, hang on a minute. I haven't even put in. What about the asbestos? It gives you opportunity to, because I've quoted many jobs over the years where I might leave something out, or I've had times where our plumber has rung me and said, "Well, Belly, you're not going to believe this. I left the drainage out." Oh, okay, right. What was the drainage? Oh, 40 grand. Oh, good. Okay, we've won that job. When you win a job, you don't go to you might go. Sometimes you can be upfront, but at the end of the day, that generally means, and this is another great thing that we're very blessed with ProStart, that we're loyal to our contractors. So, let's use you as an example. Sorry, Aaron, you're going to be the one that stuffed it up this time. So you've just dropped 40 grand. Oh, fantastic. So I'll then go around and I'll make some calls. Well, first of all, we'll decide, hey, do we really collectively want this job? And if we all, the main players, I mean, and if we say yes, obviously we're the builders, we're the main players, well, we'll agree. Obviously, you can't take a hit of 40 grand. Well, if your price was $1 million, well, I'd say, you know what, that's up to you. Bad luck. But generally speaking, you can't take 40 grand. So collectively, we'll go, all right, well, the Sparky will go, well, all right, I'll take 5. We'll take a cut. Simply produce the job at the level we need to produce, obviously, but it also means that creates that bond. You go, well, I stuffed it up, but collectively we fixed it. That means you're in. You're in the basket, and we're all in it together, because guaranteed the next job, someone hopefully won't drop 40 grand like you just did, but, you can work together. So that's where all of that comes with the pen and the paper. When you're writing it all, I still get quotes from our main plumber Yeah, he thinks he's the world's greatest computer guy. He sent everything comes in upside down, or he'll scan it in back to front. So I'll just get it black. I know the quote's on the other side because you can see a bit of ink. It's upside down. And he'll make 3 phone calls arguing that he didn't, and then he'll blame his computer for it, and then he'll turn it over and send it through. But it's all handwritten, But of course, and then he'll do his breakdowns on larger projects. We've got one at the moment that's got some serious audio visual stuff in it, and it's worth a lot of money, and that has to be full attention, And a lot of it, I'll mark it off. I'm marking their costings off.
Yeah, look. So true. And you mentioned before about, being upfront. I mean, for people listening to this, you have to be in business a long time to earn that, don't you? To be able to have that conversation, righto, mate, look, we've got that. Thank you for stuffing that up, but we're in this together. We all have to take a haircut, so we'll work together. Like that takes a lot of time in building up trust and relationships, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The ones that come to us and do our work, so look, give us a chance, and we'll look as soon as a lot of companies get comfortable thinking, oh well, ProStart, they've got tons of work. That all of a sudden their numbers start to creep up. They creep up. It only takes one subcontractor with a fairly serious component within a tender to be putting in stupid prices for us to lose the tender. Everyone involved in that tender loses that. And once they're gone, they don't come back. They don't come back and say, oh, no, have a second go. It doesn't work like that. So most numbers that I look at, I can see straight away whether they're okay or not. And half the time I've already priced them myself. So, but it's so important that I've got to be able to ring you and say, I think you're too cheap. Because there might be a chance where you've missed that 40 grand as an example, and it gives us an opportunity in the early stage. If you go, oh yeah, I did. Or I might say, I think, are you sure that looks a bit high to me?
Yeah, look, it's so true and so important as well. Now, Wayne, is there a particular period of time or era where you look back in construction and think they were the good days or they were the easier days? Or like, I'm not saying a time better than now, of course, but is there just a period of time when you look back and think, yeah, geez, that was fun?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the 80s into the 80s. Look, I'm 60 years old, so in the 80s, and this is not builders my age or older will say, oh, back when we didn't have all of this OH&S and oh god, you could still have a Winnie Blue on the job and all that sort of stuff. We worked at schools where we would literally have, let's say there's 10 blokes on the job, we'd all bring our morning tea or a smoko, and it might be my turn this day, so I'm going to cook our smoko, and you might bring in a Scotch fillet. These days that Scotch fillet would be worth $30, but you'd bring a couple of eggs, and we'd eat full meals, and it was fantastic. On payday, the boss would have a game of cards with us and, take all of our money and walk off, and he'd say, oh, bad luck, fellas. He'd outsmart us. I think he had one of those trick playing decks. But it was a lot more casual. Was safety held in the regard that it is now? Absolutely not. Are we way better for that? Absolutely we are. We're way better in so many ways. But for camaraderie, the early days of camaraderie on site was so strong. These days it's not. Jackson, I'm a stickler for when I get frustrated if we have morning tea. I'm not on the site very often, but if I am, I try to be there for smoko. I try to, so I can sit there, tell my usual corny gags that they've heard a million times over, but it's still the same. It still is the banter that you have. And if guys say, oh, yeah, no, well, I'll be there in a minute. Or no, you come together, you eat together. I grew up working, as I say, with civil, a lot of landscape. So I'm sure our European friends won't mind me saying I grew up with a lot of Italians.
Yes.
And a lot of Greeks. And, one of ththose guys, his name also was, Bobby Marcon, but I used to call him Uncle Bob. And he was a huge, probably a 6'3" Sicilian man. In his day, he would have been a striking figure. Blonde hair, all that sort of stuff. Big man, he's I'm only a little fella, but a big man and like strong personality, and we just loved him. And I'd put young blokes with him. He was a concreter, and he'd get on the end of the tape measure, and I still use tape measures that have got the metric on one side and the old imperial on the other side. So he'd string a tape measure out, and he'd say, okay, now maybe I take a measurement. And he'd get his tape measure. He goes, okay, it is 11 metres, 3 foot, and 10 centimetres. So we just knew, all right, that's about 12 metres. Good on you, Bobby. No worries, mate. And that's a long, long time ago, but his values were fantastic. And his stories and his food, we would eat together. You know the old Italians, they'd come in with beautiful food, mixed food. And being knucklehead Aussies, we're hopeless. We think if you burn a sausage for 3 days on a barbecue, you're Gabrielle Gatteau. But, those days were good. I enjoyed that. And we're pretty full on in making sure all of our guys, including all of our contractors, which there's we can have quite a few people on site. You've got to know each other. You've got to be able to walk past each other and be very professional, but you've also got to be able to poke each other in the rib from time to time and enjoy each other's company. Otherwise, what are you doing it for? Because, we want people to be able to, when they're starting, we want them to see, well, if you work hard, you can actually have a boat. You can have a boat. And if you want to have a flash car, you can have whatever you want, you can have if you just put the work in, put the time in, and do what's required, because nothing is free. On God's earth, nothing is free.
Yeah, look, I love it. And everyone I talk to says the same thing, the good old days. And I still think it comes down to people like yourselves, these sorts of stories where someone will be listening to this and they'll say, you know what, I'd love to go work for those guys. That sounds like a lot of fun. People do value that. They want to. It's not just about the money. You've got to enjoy what you're doing every day and have a bit of a laugh and get on with people.
Yeah. Oh, look, it's important. Jackson's works hard with that. We've got our brother-in-law, who works with us, and he's a superstar, and that's all good to have your family. But it is getting harder to find people. A lot of people these days, they want to know what we can do for them first. When in actual fact, you've got to, if anything, if there's any young people listening out there, just please understand one thing. It's not the employer's job on the early onset to show what we can give you. You've got to have an understanding, and hopefully you've been raised in a way that you've got an understanding that you have to prove yourself to a certain level, not for 20 years, and okay, you're not too bad, I suppose, but you can get a good feel for people very quickly. And we get a lot of people come through our doors that, promise the world and pretty much deliver zero up until 9:30 in the morning, and already. We've had people. I had a guy that sued me, and he didn't actually work. He didn't actually leave the lunchroom. He forgot to tell us that he'd just lost about 35 stone and had an operation. And, respectfully, he looked like a bag of loose fruit. He didn't tell us any of that bit. And then he wanted a full day's. He was there for 15 minutes, and he wanted a full day's pay, a full day's superannuation pay. And I told him to get stuffed and next to an arm in VCAT. And I laughed. I couldn't believe it. I know that sounds a bit rough around the edges, but you know what? We are.
It's how it should be. Unfortunately,
look, it's the truth. It's the way it is. Construction is an industry where you get we come across a lot of really, really clever people that build and design great things, and they're very passionate about what they do. So, and we are as well, and we're very professional. But you've also got to deal with a dyslexic subcontractor who is so good at what he does, but he, does he swear? Yes. Does he carry on a bit? Does he get there? Oh, I'm going to be there today. Does he come a week later? Yes. But does he do brilliant work? Absolutely. So as a builder, basically all we do is nursemaid everybody. That's what a good builder does. They nursemaid so many people and caress them and corral them into a point where they all slowly drive to a finished product. That's what we do, and hopefully most of the time our products come out pretty good. But we do have a bit of a laugh along the way. And we also have stressful times as well. COVID has proven to all of us how it can be stressful. And that's every single one of us. But maybe it's time we sit up and pay a bit of attention, pull our belts in, straighten up our ties and get back to work properly without just presuming it's all going to fall on our lap. Because over a period of the last 10 or 15 years, we've become a little bit lazy and just presuming it's just going to come to us. And what happens is we lose the skill level out of that, Aaron. That's what I'm noticing. People are spending so much time twiddling their thumbs, deciding what they're going to do. They lose a fair chunk of their youth and they haven't actually learnt anything. See, so people who don't sort of follow you and see what you're doing right now, who've got an interest in it, but they sort of never really do anything about it, well, how are they going to learn if they've never actually followed you? Oh, that's what you do. You wear headphones and you do that and you blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? You've got to be able to put a bit of time in, and that's another thing while I'm doing my sermons, put my little pink microphone on and march up and down a stage. Our young people need to pay more attention.
Yeah, look, it comes back to that old adage, 10,000 hours too, and you don't become successful at things overnight or watching it on YouTube or albeit listen to a podcast. You need to put in the groundwork. You need to be around people, and unfortunately, that gets a little lost these days, doesn't it?
It does a little bit. The old saying of the harder I work, the luckier I get. Now that's all well and good as a bit of a gag, but the reality of it is, we get a lot of young people. I think Jackson told me just the other day, some guy wanted I'd really love to work with you guys, and this is what I need. I think, did he send you an email? He sent you a list. I'm surprised he didn't ask for a pair of flash jocks.
Well, we haven't met this guy. He requested a company car.
Company car. This is how much I want an hour. I've never forgotten a guy. I know we're probably getting a bit pressed for time, but many years ago, I know a lot of Dutch blokes. When it comes to Dutchies, grumpy bloody Dutchman, let me tell you. But they're good friends, and I'm sort of part of the family with a certain crew. They had a young bloke come over from Holland, and he was just over on holidays, and he came onto one of our sites and was helping us. And I've never forgotten this because it was just a reminder. I'd been told that he's not all that keen on doing any work or anything like that. Anyway, there was about a metre by a metre hole in a slab, concrete slab. Plumbers had done something. I can't remember. Probably had to adjust some piping. And there was half a metre of crushed rock sitting by the side of this concrete hole, just had to be pushed in. It would literally take you 3 minutes. Literally. Maybe you'd push it in a bit with the shovel. And he stood there. Was about 6 or 7 blokes, all Dutchies, were all standing around, He's one of the guys says, okay, I want you to put that crushed rock, push the rock into that hole. Here's the shovel, and you do that. And he stood there and he looked at us and he flayed his arms open and he said, "You want me to do all of that?" It was literally a 2-minute job. And I've never forgotten. And he's there, like he's got a post, and he's sort of pushing a couple of stones in the end. Somebody's ripped the shovel off him and said, "Hey, get out of the way."
I'll do it myself.
And I've never forgotten that it was just a fun thing. But each time I see someone, I go, "Are you seriously thinking that that's appropriate? What you're doing is appropriate in regards to working towards a better future for yourself?" Some people lose the ability to go, "Well, I'm actually not doing anything at all. I'm just twiddling my thumbs doing bugger all." But then all of a sudden you get a beautiful surprise with someone else will come along and they get an opportunity and they fly, and off they go, That's the best side of it.
And I'd imagine Jackson be very enjoy. I can see why you enjoy coming to work every day too, working with a naturally funny father.
Yeah, he is. He knows he's funny. He's got a lot of good gags, and as he said, he doesn't come to the site much often these days. When the old man is on site, and we do have those days when we're all together. Number one, the work productivity goes sky high, and everyone else is extremely happy around the site, and it's just a really good environment to be around. And they're the days that you love going to work.
Yeah, well said. Now, what about for the future, Wayne? How do you see sort of the future playing out with ProStart Constructions moving forward?
Obviously, I still hold on to a lot of our educational side stuff, but the reality of it is that, it's a really closed sort of environment, and it's not something that Jackson has been involved with a lot in regards to the actual office side of it. So, and I don't know whether really it's Jackson's long-term wish to stick with that. So we're probably starting to push more into the domestic side. We've got a couple of great architects that we do work with, and we love working with them. Another project popped up just before we started chatting today that we're going to be looking at that they want to deal directly with us, which is great. That gives us a sense of worth straight away. So that's sort of where we're heading. And probably over the next 5 years, 65, I'll probably be well and truly half-time in the office, doing more so a little bit more in the background, helping Jackson. I'd expect that he would be doing what I'm doing now without any trouble at all. And then, probably in the next 10 years, sort of fade off into the sunset, but probably always be there for support. And, hey, I need a chop out. Well, I need you to go and pick up the excavator and go and tow it over to a job. I'll do it. That sort of stuff. And I get a lot of that through, my mum and dad left us early, but Dad was a very hard worker. And one of the guys the guy that I worked for before ProStart, extremely hard-working family, high-quality family, and AJ retired, and would still be, fart-arsing around with this, that, and a bit more, doing things, because that's just what you do, So when Jackson and the rest of the guys that come along, Jackson is in the process of searching for the next one. You need to have someone alongside you in businesses like this that you can really trust 100% and know that they will get it right most of the time, and they're really hard to find. When we find that guy, that'll also mean I'll be able to step aside even more. So, next 5 years, maybe down to a couple of days and a bit more fishing and a bit more of this, a bit more of that. I would like to travel with my wife. I'd like to take her to parts of Australia that I travelled to many years ago that I know she would love. But you need time to do that, don't you? So, but I'd be in a position there where I can actually do a tender or a quote for Jackson while I'm sitting in the middle of the bungle at the top of WA. That's all easy. So that's probably where we're heading in the next 5 years.
All right. So for the people listening to this who want to reach out to you and come sit down, have a chat with you guys and discuss their project needs, what's the best way to go about it?
Most of the contact is made through our info at ProStart. Jackson these days generally the first port of call, and then like the schooling side of things, that obviously comes through our set architects and through the VSBA. So that's something that I still look at. But you can go onto our website. Our website will give you a good look at. Jackson's just done a fair bit of work with the website. He's done a great job.
Any guys out there wanting to get in contact and talk about their future residential projects, we're very up to date with Instagram. It is one of our main points of call. We put a lot of our work up there, that whether it be posts or stories, we really like to give a good impression of what we do day to day. And also on our website, as the old man was saying, our emails are up there, our mobile phones are up there, and they're available for anyone who wants to reach out and get in contact at any time of the day. Yeah.
We're always happy to talk to people. There's no doubt about that. We're friendly guys. I think hopefully that will come across. That we are you're in it for a long time, so you might as well enjoy what you're doing, so to speak. So that's the website would be a good starter for people to have a look at us. You'll see some of our projects. I'm all over the Instagram and Twitter, and they won't give me a password, Aaron. They won't tell me how to log on. They're worried I'll stuff it up.
Well, the first thing people will notice is that camaraderie definitely comes out on online socials. So well done for communicating that and conveying that out there, because it's certainly evident from sitting down here in Melbourne chatting with you guys. So Wayne and Jackson from ProStart Construction, it's been really nice and enjoyable coming on to Build Hatch and telling your story. So thanks, guys.
Well, thanks, Aaron. Really, really enjoyed it, Aaron. It was lovely talking to you. Yeah, you're a good bloke, so thanks for that.
Thank you. Well, that was another Build Hatch episode with Wayne and Jackson from ProStart Constructions. And as you could tell, I had a lot of fun talking to these guys just about everything across construction. As usual, if you know a hard worker having a go in the construction space or a building related business, person or product where you love what they are doing or selling, then please do get into contact with our team and we'll be more than happy to tell their story and get behind their goods or service on the BuildHatch marketplace. Our team are busy rolling out independent sellers on buildhatch.com as we speak, so stay tuned for more and more products and services as they onboarded. As usual, please check out our own Instagram page and other socials where you'll be able to learn more about our guests and some of the features of the work that we talk about. Have a great week and you'll hear me again on the airwaves next week. Thanks for listening to another episode of BuildHatch.
You have experienced a BuildHatch developed production.